Honorable Minister of Planning in Zambia, Mr. Lucky Mulusa, His Excellency the High Commissioner of the Republic of Zambia to South Africa, Mr. Emmanuel Mwamba, the Chairman of the Zambia South Africa Business Council, Mr. Charles Kalima, senior government officials from Zambia and South Africa, CEOs and business leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by extending the well wishes of Honorable Minister Rob Davies, who couldn't be with us today. I would really like to also express appreciation to the High Commission for partnering with us and their continued partnership with us, and for inviting us to today's platform. I will echo your sentiment, Excellency. Our two countries really do have a special relationship. It's built on a wealth of shared history, which intersects our economic and political realms, including a lot of engagements at head of state level. Zambia really is a strategic market and partner to South Africa, and vice versa, because we see the potential in growing our economic links and our interconnectedness. We do share a number of bilateral agreements. I think, High Commissioner, you spoke to those. And we also continue to work together in championing the African agenda and championing development initiatives on the continent, particularly in relation to our integration. Notably, our cooperation in terms of the tripartite free trade negotiations, which are critical to our economic integration. Similarly, we are partners in realizing the North-South Corridor infrastructure development projects, which are also strategic. If we're going to talk about development and integration of the continent, we need to develop infrastructure. We need to build industrial capacity. We need to do away with tariffs that are blocking the flow of intra-Africa trade. So I'm quite pleased that between South Africa and Zambia, we're making a lot of headway in realizing this integration agenda. In terms of trade between our two countries, there has been positive growth. Our total trade has grown from 19.9 billion rand in 2011. 2015, it was 31.9 billion rand. South Africa is indeed Zambia's main trading partner in the SADC region, and Zambia is South Africa's fourth largest trading partner in the region. So this goes to show how important we are to each other as markets. For the most part, though, our exports as South Africans, South Africa have accounted for the lion's share of this trade. So we also share the sentiment, Excellency, that we need to deal with the trade imbalance that exists, and we need to put mechanisms in place to ensure that we address this imbalance. And we also recognize that key to addressing the trade imbalance is that we need to identify and establish cooperative mechanisms so that we can assist Zambian businesses that are looking for supply opportunities in South Africa. So we need to have an active program around that. And in addition, us as the DTI, we at the Department of Trade and Industry, we implement what we call an outward investment trade strategy to the continent. We are conscious that our sustained trade relations with the rest of the continent are dependent on ensuring that we invest in our partner countries, particularly in areas that are going to raise productive capacity, industrialization, manufacturing platforms, infrastructure projects. So that's where we are really overtly channeling our investments to build productive capacity on the continent. And we believe that these investments are going to also enable us then to begin to source more from the continent. Because if we build productive capacity on the continent, we have more value-added products for us to begin to import into the South African market. And for us, that's the only sustainable way to continue with our trading relationship. We cannot continue just supplying value-added goods to the rest of the continent and importing primary products. We need to really sort of add value to the content of our intra-Africa trade. Our aim as government is to increase the levels of South African investments to the Zambian economy specifically, and to the rest of the continent through targeted support measures. Two such measures were the creation of Trade Invest Africa that I'm responsible for. We also unveiled what we call guidelines to good business practice for doing business on the continent. This is a very important initiative for us because what it does is that it creates a framework for our businesses and our investors in terms of conduct and being good corporate citizens in the countries in which they invest on the continent. And part of that, of the guidelines, Excellency, will also deal with the concern that you raised around creating supplier relationships between some of our investors, retailers, and local producers in the Zambian markets and other markets on the continent. So we, as Trade Invest Africa, we've been created then to support South African businesses that are looking to invest in the Zambian economy and the rest of the African continent. And we are optimistic that these investments are going to result in improved productive capacity in the Zambian economy, so that we can begin to then import more value-added products from the Zambian market into South Africa and deal with the trade imbalance. In terms of investments as well, we really would like to commend the Zambian government in terms of the business landscape that has been created in the Zambian economy. I think Zambia is probably one of the easiest countries to do business in on the continent, and that's commendable. And this is evidenced, of course, by the number of companies, South African companies already in the market. We'd like to see an increase in those companies and investors. And we believe that success stories of our investors such as your MTN, SAB Miller, Massmart, ShopRite, Standard Bank, Liberty Group, amongst others, are going to continue to yield fruit, and we're going to see an increased amount of investments, particularly towards infrastructure and manufacturing. We need to contribute to the manufacturing drive that the Zambian government has embarked upon. So we actually are very grateful for this platform, and we applaud it because it enables us then to have a conversation about what specific measures and action plans we need to have in place between ourselves as the two countries to grow our trade and investment, and to discuss more thoroughly to say how are we going to realize the vision of integrating our continent, bearing in mind the development integration approach that we both subscribe to, that says we need to build infrastructure, we need to ramp up industrialization, we need to make sure that we integrate our markets at the level of tariffs as well. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from the experts in the room around those and the concrete steps that we need to take as governments to enable business to thrive, because all we can do is to enable, and we are here to do that. With those words, I thank you very much for the opportunity, and we look forward to deliberations today.